Hello ladies, I'm Mr. Wilsauce, and today we're going to be doing a Let's Play as usual, but this is going to be a little different from all the other ones I've done, because we're not going to be Let's Playing a video game. And, in fact, we're going to be Let's Playing Dungeons & Dragons. Oh yeah, which if you don't know is a pen and paper role-playing game. Probably the most, no, definitely the most famous pen and paper role-playing game. We started off the campaign using 4th edition rules, and we quickly transitioned over to Pathfinder once we figured out how much better they were. I mean, 4th edition is terrible. Anybody who says otherwise is an idiot who should die. Yeah, Pathfinder is much better. Only recently started doing that, and I definitely recommend it. Just don't even, it's cheaper, better rules, everything is better. Just don't waste your money on 4th edition. If you already have 4th edition, get rid of the books, get Pathfinder. But enough of that little rant. So I'm basically just going to be telling the story of the whole campaign, which I'm dungeon mastering. With my infinite creativity. Yeah, I don't use like a published adventure or anything, I just make everything up. Usually on the spot. And, so yeah, there's not going to be much mechanics talk, and not much about the actual players, just the story. So without further ado, I'm going to start. So, the adventure starts with our mage, our wizard, Dornar the wizard, Gullstaff, how original, Dornar Gullstaff, who received a letter from a halfling woman named Eccentrica Greenhorn. Sorry, I have to pause a bit to remember all this. I don't have any notes or anything, because I don't care about the quality of my content. Ho ho ho. So yeah, Dornar Gullstaff, I'll give you a little background on him. He likes to use orbs. He was a follower of Iowan back when Iowan existed, because it's a 4th edition god that doesn't exist in Pathfinder. So, he used to be a blasphemer that worshipped false gods that don't exist. And he's a seeker of knowledge. He's very interested in interplanar travel, which is lucky for him, because I'm using the Pathfinder campaign setting Planescape, which is awesome. But so far in the adventure, they've only stayed in Faerun, the prime material plane. So yes, he received a letter from Eccentrica Greenhorn. So he went to the, and pause for originality here, he went to the nearby city of Candlekeep. Yes. You can go ahead and take a drink whenever I reference or rip off of Baldur's Gate or Fallout. If you do that, you'll probably die by the end of this Let's Play. So, he went to the nearby town of Candlekeep, which is about 2 miles away from Eccentrica's mansion. The Greenhorn mansion, rather. And he went inside and into a local tavern looking for adventure help. And he found a dwarf and a half-orc, half-elf warlord. And they were both drinking up a storm and having fun. And the half-orc, half-elf warlord is Waldenbithus Falconsflight. He worships Gorum, the god of like chaos and war. Not so much chaos, but later you'll see. He tends to be a bit chaotic once he starts to really worship Gorum. But yes, he is a warlord who worships Gorum devoutly. And the dwarf is a paladin of Torug, the god of the forge and dwarvy things. And he prefers warhammers and being a badass, like all dwarves are. So they were drinking because the day, well, yeah, basically the day beforehand, they'd been in the tavern the whole time since the day before. They had fought in defense of Candlekeep from a bunch of orcs, and the dwarf, whose name is Thorin Oakenshield, a very dwarven name. He also speaks in a Scottish accent. And he's, although when he does speak, he's quite quiet, mostly due to the ineptness of his role player. But no, Dan's a pretty good guy. He's a pretty cool guy. He gave me this microphone. He'll lend me it. So anyway, Thorin Oakenshield was being swarmed by orcs, and he was on the brink of death when he prayed to Torog for help and a savior, and then Walendithis raped the, not literally, that'd be horrible, but he came in with his war axe and just basically dismembered all the orcs and tore them apart. They got owned. Noobs. Yeah, so he pwned some noobs with his axe, and Torog was so grateful that he brought Walendithis out. Not Torog, no. He didn't, no, there's no deities, no. Derp. Thorin took Walendithis with him out of gratitude, and bought him a bunch of drinks, and they've been drunk. So they were in their drunken stupor. They heard the offer of Dornar looking for adventurers. And they were like, "Oh yeah, adventure, let's do it," and they went with him. And the letter from Excentrica actually said that she needed him and a party of adventurers to come and retrieve a magical artifact from underneath her home in her basement. So of course Dornar is very interested in magical stuff because he's a wizard, so he jumped at the idea of doing that. So the three of them set off from Candlekeep immediately to Excentrica's home, and Excentrica, being a halfling woman, answered the door, and none of the party members saw her at first, and they looked down, and it was only her and her elf bodyguard, who is a female, who didn't really say anything at all. She just leaned up against the wall behind Excentrica with a loaded crossbow, looking menacingly at the party. So Excentrica is a very friendly woman, and she invited them all in, and got them all drinks, and they started discussing the quest. Also, it should be noted that Excentrica locked the door of her home with a bunch of locks and things after she let them in, and she did this very quickly. And also she asked them if they'd been followed, and she seemed a little bit suspicious of them, and, well, not so much suspicious, just very cautious. She ordered her bodyguard to pour some drinks, and they had a bit of a party, and she told them that her cousin, whose name I've forgotten, it's not really important, another greenhorn, had discovered that Guile the goldsmith, his tomb, and his dwarven fortress, which the tomb resides in, is actually underneath the Greenhorn Mansion. So he, who knew that Guile the goldsmith was a famous dwarven hero who loved gold, and yeah, so obviously a dwarven lord who loves gold is probably going to be buried with some treasure. So he partied up with a bunch of other guys from Candlekeep, much like Dornar did, and ran down and hasn't been seen since, and that was about a week ago from where the party are now. So Excentrica asks them while they're down there, to try and, while they're looking, I mean, obviously, to her, the artifact is greatest priority. She's not very sentimental. Her cousin's body seemed more of like an afterthought to her. But she asked them, if possible, to bring her living cousin back, and if her cousin was dead, she wanted them to retrieve an heirloom that he had with him, which was a magical pendant bearing the Greenhorn crest. So the party quickly set off. They didn't even spend the night or anything, even though it was just like afternoon when they arrived. So they went down into the basement. Mrs. Greenhorn showed her a corner of the basement that had been mined out, and there was a ladder leading down, and an ancient dwarven door was uncovered, surrounded by like rubble and stuff. It had been mined too. It's underneath their basement. So the three of them, Thorin, Walendithis, and Dornar, cautiously opened the door and found a spiral staircase leading down. and they heard the shutting of a door behind them. And as they looked back up, they saw this greenhorn had gone, and the trap door leading back up out of the basement was gone. I mean, was shut, not gone. Dear God, I misspeak a lot. And then I spent a lot of time correcting my misspeakings and being hard on myself. So, no more of that. So the three of them, they found a spiral staircase leading down, and they couldn't reach the very bottoms of the spiral staircase because near the bottom of the spiral staircase had collapsed, and parts of the wall and everything had been destroyed. It's completely full of rubble. So they stopped off at the lowest they possibly could on the spiral staircase because of all the rubble, and so they took the lowest exit they could, because there are several doors branching off from the spiral staircase, so they just took the lowest one that they could. So they exited there, and they saw a hallway with a branch with double doors in front of them, and then branching off to the right was another passageway. They went off to the right, and they saw, which I can describe as like a demon door from Fable. It was the face of a dwarf, and also it should be noted that Guy the Goldsmith was incredibly racist during his living time, and he hated pretty much all races except for dwarves and like constructs, which aren't really a race. They're not even really living. Well, they're living. They're not biological. I wouldn't call them a race. I'd call them like you wouldn't call like a toaster a race, would you? Even if the toaster was like sentient. Or maybe you would. That'd be freaking awesome. Anyway, so they saw this demon door-like face who greeted them with a deep dwarven voice, which I guess I'll try to do. And said, "Halt, intruders!" And Dornar, who is like the control freak of the group, he is a self-proclaimed leader. He tried to greet it first, and the door quickly assaulted him with racial slurs and the like, because Dornar is a human wizard. Thorin stepped in front of him after the face yelled at the human to be gone from this sacred ground, but he was a lot more polite to Thorin, and he told them that behind him, the door, that is, behind the door, was a portion of Guile's treasure. So Thorin said, the door said that he would open up for Thorin, not the rest of the party, but for Thorin at least, if Thorin was able to answer 3 riddles. I don't really remember all of them. I remember one. He asked who was the leader of the party, and if Thorin had answered anything but himself, the door would probably have thrown a fit. But wisely, Thorin told him himself, because he's the only dwarf in the party. And another one was, I think it was one that I ripped off of The Hobbit about the ring, that Smeagol tells Bilbo, or maybe, I don't know. I'm pretty sure every D&D campaign ever is ripped off The Hobbit for the riddles. And there's another one I don't remember at all. So, the door said, "Farewell, my dwarven comrade," and faded into the walls. And it seemed a bit sad because the door would basically die if it opened for anybody. But Thorin decided that treasure was more important than the life of something else, and the door killed itself and opened up. And inside was a small treasure room. No gold or anything. Just well, actually there was something gold. It was brightly lit, and the stone walls fancifully dwarven carved. And in the middle of the room was a pedestal, a stone pedestal with dwarven script in it. Dothic, I believe it is, and or maybe that's dragons. Is that draconic or dwarven? I think it's dwarven. Anyway, dwarven script inscribed on the pillar, and on top of the pillar was a solid gold wand. Dornar actually does speak Dwarven. He speaks a multitude of languages, including Draconic and Elven. Common, of course. think something else too. I think he might speak like demonic or something. And Walendithis also speaks primordial for some reason. Don't know how I picked that one up. Probably like some obscure high school class or something in half-orc town. Anyway, so Thorin quickly claimed the wand, as it was obviously a dwarven relic. And Dornar wanted it also because he's a wizard, but Thorin was quite stubborn in his non-relinquishing of the wand. So they were able to translate the script, and it described the wand's powers, and it said in a rather cryptic speech that it would summon Giles Gollum to aid the caster. So Thorin held on to that, and they went to the double doors. And through the double doors, they found a rather square room, and there were heating vents all along the outer rim of the room, like underneath all the walls. There are vents emanating like steam and heat from them. And in the center was a pedestal with an amethyst on it, and there were runes. There's a circle of runes surrounding the pedestal. And as I looked up, they saw that the whole ceiling had like a giant block of ice that hadn't been melted by the floor, because the ceiling was pretty high. It was like 20 feet up, and it was like a solid chunk of ice. And with a perception check, I think one of them, probably, I'm just going to say Thorin, and to quote, to misquote Douglas Adams' intro to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, not book, the book version. Anything that is wrong is from here on out wrong for good. So even if this didn't happen, it's going to be canon from now on that Thorin was the one who looked up and saw this. There were some black, like dark figures in the ice, and he counted at least like 10 of them, or at least 5 or something. I don't know exactly how many there were. And Dornar, using his Arcana, was able to identify the runes as trigger runes that would be triggered if anything passed above them. Walendithis had the bright idea to throw his throwing hammer over the runes to knock the amethyst off. Apparently, he just completely ignored what Dornar had said, threw his hammer over it, knocked the amethyst off into a corner, on top of a heat vent. Also, his hammer fell over there, and all of the heating vents spewed fire upwards, melting the ice, and also the vents were in front of the doors, so they were basically trapped in here. And the amethyst was behind and above one of the heating vents, and it was being sprayed with fire. So the ice above them melted, and about 12 decrepit-looking skeletons fell from the ceiling all around them. So yeah, they were kind of tough. I mean, not tough, but they were, all of them had like scimitars, and I think a couple of them had bows. They were surrounding the party, and they swarmed them. Since they were so like decrepit and weak and things, the wizard was able to take them out with a few area of effect spells, like Thunder Wave. They're 4th edition spells, I don't know. Some 4th edition ones, which are lame and not as good as Pathfinders, but you've already heard enough about that. So, yes, they were able to dispatch the skeletons, but they discovered that after that, they were sitting around contemplating how to get out, and they discovered they were kind of running out of oxygen. Also, Thorin was extremely greedy and decided not to wait until the flames died down, but he just wanted to get that amethyst. So he braved the flames and ran straight through them, picked up the amethyst and ran back, depleting, I'm going to say 2/3 of his health in doing so, but I think he laid his hands on himself. Gross. Being a paladin. In the name of Torag, I grab my tits. That's just what I imagine. I just imagine the dwarven paladin grabbing his chest. But they were nearly out of oxygen, about to suffocate, when I think it was Dornar. Also, Dornar is quite sneaky. He multi-classed as a rogue. She has a bit of like thievery skills and stealthiness. So he scratched off one of the runes and discovered that one of the vents had turned off when he did that. So they quickly hammered off all the runes and tore up the floor around the pedestal. So they're one amethyst richer, and Thorn was 2/3 health poorer. They discovered they're closer. There's another double door opposite the one they had come in from, but there was also a weakened part of the wall to their right from the door they came in from. They decided that they wanted to investigate the wall to the right, and Thorin took his warhammer to the wall and broke it down enough so that they were able to climb through. With a dungeoneering check, Thorin was able to discover that with his dungeoneering knowledge, this type of tunnel was often dug by kobolds who had occupied abandoned forts and things, because they like to make their own paths around that are quicker than intruders can make their way around. So, yeah, he knew that. So they made their way through this tunnel which had been dug, and they didn't notice a tripwire on the floor that somebody tripped on, and the whole tunnel behind them began to collapse. So they ran forward, and the tunnel behind them completely collapsed, so there's no way back the way they came. They ended up in a pitch black room with no lights or anything. Well, there was a light, but yeah, they couldn't see themselves. They couldn't see each other or anything. But to their left, from where they came from, they could see 3 kobolds around a campfire, and they were cooking a dead spider. There was a dead spider laying on top of the open fire, and they're chatting. Now, kobolds have dark vision, which I'm pretty sure somebody discovered with a dungeoneering check. But the kobolds didn't seem to have noticed them yet, so they just kind of stayed still and went prone. And they were able to see that the floor they were standing on and the floor the kobolds was standing on was separated by a 15-foot gap in the floor. And Dornar decided to go stealthy and crawl a little bit closer to them, up to the edge of the pit, and listen to the conversation. And the kobolds were talking about this shiny, quote, that someone named Brother had discovered on the body of a weak little halfling. So obviously Dornar assumed that this was the Greenhorn pendant, and listened to more and more, but the kobolds weren't talking much after that. So then, I can't remember what happened next. I can't remember who initiated combat. I think Dornar shot a magic missile, or one of the kobolds saw them or something. But yeah, a fight broke out, and Thorin lit up a torch, I think. And yeah, the battle commenced. And there was a closet to their right from the tunnel they came from, and there was a really drawn-out sequence over the pit where the kobolds were throwing rocks with their slings and throwing bullets, and Dornar was popping some magic missiles back at them. Walendithus threw his throwing axe, not his big one. Wait, no, Walendithus is a throwing hammer. Thorin has a throwing axe, and Thorin has a warhammer and a throwing axe, and then Walendithus is a great axe and a throwing hammer. That's kind of confusing. But, yeah, so they threw their throwing weapons, and eventually they decided to take cover inside the closet behind the door. So, when they emerged, I think Thorn's torch had gone out, so they were pretty much in the dark again. They couldn't see the kobolds, but the kobolds could see them fine, and were happily throwing bullets at them from a distance. Everybody kind of took cover behind Thorn's big shield. Or Dornar did at least. Walendithus was back in the closet, I think. And when Thorn or somebody, I think Dornar might have cast light. But when they relit the room, they saw that 2 of the kobolds were right next to them on the ledge. And there was a big squabble, and that ended in one of the kobolds dead, and one of them helpless on the ground. And Walendithus was able to intimidate the one on... Well, you see, one of the kobolds died, and one of the kobolds had about 1 HP left. And Waldithis, who saw that he was extremely weak, decided to intimidate him. It succeeded. Made an intimidate check, and it succeeded. And the kobold dropped its weapons, ran to a corner, and curled up in a ball, basically. The other one had stopped shooting at them, and they decided to leave it alone for now. But now they're faced with the problem of getting over the ledge. I think Dornar, being the most agile one, was able to shimmy across, because to the right of the ledge was like about a 6-inch platform jutting out from the side of the wall, and he was able to shimmy along that to get to the other side where the campfire was. The kobolds had put that out, obviously, for stealth reasons, so they could shoot while being in the cover of darkness. So he made it across there. Thorin and Waldithis tried to climb down the ledge, because I think they had dropped a torch or something and discovered it was only about 20 or 30 feet deep. So Waldithis climbed down alright. Thorin tried to climb down, but failed and fell down on his ass and took a bit of damage. And then both of them climbed back up the other side. Also, I think Waldithis either threw the kobold across the gap or carried him on his back or something. But yeah, he took him to the other side to interrogate him about what they were talking about how someone named Brother had the shiny. So Waldithis relit the fire and began interrogating him, and as he was asking him questions, he was slowly pushing the kobold's feet into the fire. And the kobold told him that Brother was in the barracks, which he told him was right next to the campfire. There was a wooden door next to the campfire. And also there was a trap door to the right, or an opening in the floor, where a ladder was going down. And there was another door to the left of the ladder. So, also that kobold, that third kobold had gone missing. They couldn't find him there. So Dornar decided to peek in through the door, and when he did, he saw about 20 to 30 kobolds sleeping and jammed into the small barracks, which is about 50 feet long and about 10 feet high. So yeah, it was a bit cozy in there. And there was one kobold who was like skinning something, who had his back to the door, and a little bit of light was let in when Dornar opened the door, and when the kobold began to turn around, Dornar quickly shut it, and they decided to leave. They killed the kobold and put out the fire, and they went to the door on the left, not the barracks door, and they saw that that way was completely blocked off by giant spider webs. So somebody burnt away the spider webs with a torch, and went that way. And through the webs, before they burnt them, they saw a large black figure, which they assumed to be a giant spider. So they burnt away the webs, and they went through the passageway into a large atrium type room that wasn't lit at all except by the party members with their torches. And the giant spider was completely gone. So all of them, originally it was just going to be Thorin, who walked ahead of the group, investigating and like taking the first blows from the spider. But he walked around, and none of them saw the spider at all. And they opened up the double doors that had connected the vent room to this one, and they looked for the spider there, and they couldn't see him. And suddenly the spider jumped down from the ceiling and landed on Dornar and attacked him. And the resulting battle, and then, well, there's a giant battle. But the party emerged without too many injuries, and I believe Thorin lost his throwing axe up into the webs, and they had to get it down somehow. I think with Mage Hand or something. So they killed the spider, and they decided to take a rest, apparently completely forgetting about all the sleeping kobolds nearby, and assuming that the kobolds were in some sort of hibernation state. But halfway through the rest, Dornar quickly remembered that there were the kobolds there. because I think this is out of character. I think we like broke session right after they killed the spider, and Dornar suggested they take an extended rest, and then we came back to the next session. Dornar was like, or the player of Dornar was like, wait a minute, we forgot about those kobolds. So Dornar remembered halfway through the rest that the kobolds were there. So they went back to the barracks, and they cracked open the door, and Thorin used his wand, and a giant golden golem emerged from the end of the wand and started destroying everything. They quickly shut the door so that none of the kobolds could get out because they were all rushing towards the door, and the whole party like pushed up against the door not to let any of them out, and the door received like several holes and a beating. And by the time that the whole thing was over, I'm pretty sure the door was on its hinges. But finally, the golem started beating on the door, so they jumped out of the way, and the golem like completely destroyed the door and walked through, saluted Thorin, and fell into a heap of golden rubble, which then turned to dust. So the party went into the barracks, looked around, saw a bunch of destroyed beds, blood everywhere, kobold organs scattered all over the ground, and they were able to find the pendant among one of the many dead kobolds. So I think it was Walendithis who put that on, and he discovered it was a magical item that gave him some resistance to poison, I believe, and it gave him like 1 armor class bonus, maybe? I can't remember exactly, but it was some sort of protective amulet. So it's obviously, besides sentimental reasons, why Excentric would want that back. So they finished off their rest, and they went down the trapdoor. I mean, the ladder. Oh wait, no, they didn't. Oh, nope, that didn't happen. So they went back into the atrium room where they killed the spider, and there was another door coming up from there that they went down, and down there they found a kobold ambush, I believe. Yes, it was a kobold ambush. They went out and they saw that half the room had been completely flooded with water, and that part of the room was slightly lower than the rest of the room. Yeah, there was a leaky pipe from the ceiling that was filling that part of the room that was less elevated than the rest with water. And there were some sort of electrical pylon things in the water that were charging it with an electric current. There were like 2 in the water, and there was 1 in the middle of the room. And then 2 to the left, there was a 10-foot elevated there was a 10-foot ledge that went going up. Atop that were 2 kobolds with slings and scimitars. There was one with there was one who was operating a giant ballista aimed at the doorway where the party was coming through. And there was another skirmishing kobold on the ground, like a spear or sword or something. And in the fight, Walendithis ran behind one of the pillars. The pylon things are basically pillars with floating crystals on top of them, and with like lightning bolts, sort of like a Tesla ball. I mean a plasma ball, except like a diamond shape. So he took cover behind one because the ballista the ballista kobold was aiming at him. So he took cover from the ballista, but was taking oncoming shocking damage from the thing. So he was stuck between an electrified rock and a hard place that happened to be spiky. Meanwhile, Thorin was able to climb up. He was able to scale the ledge, went up there, killed the 2 kobolds. Then Walendithis ran from his place and climbed up the ledge also. Dornar, meanwhile, was providing covering fire with his magic missile. I think eventually he went up the ledge also. And they killed the kobold operating the ballista, and destroyed the ballista in the process. So then Dornar took out the pylons with his with a magic missile, just he aimed at the crystals, and as soon as they were off, they shattered on the ground, sending bursts of energy throughout the room. But they were far enough away; it didn't damage anybody. So they destroyed all the pylons, and behind one of them, in the water, there was a chest submerged in the water. And they opened up the chest. Inside was about 100 GP, and there was a dagger and the blade was extremely cold, and there was a giant chunk of ice around the blade of the dagger. It's basically like a dagger with like a giant snow cone on the end stuck to it. So Dornar, being the most roguish, because there wasn't a rogue in the party at the time, he cleared away the ice, and he discovered it was a magical frost dagger. So he took the liberty of keeping that. So they went back up the ledge, and there were double doors atop the ledge they went through. And through those doors, they found that one kobold who had ambushed them before, and also they found the bottom of a ladder, which is probably the one. Yeah, it definitely is. They went back that way. No, they didn't. But yeah, it was. It was the bottom of the ladder from before. So obviously the kobold had gone that way, and he tried to ambush them, attacking with a spear, but he got away again, I think. Oh, I'm thinking of two different kobolds. No, excuse me. That was not the kobold from the campfire fight. It was one from the ballista fight who run behind the double doors. But yeah, they killed him really quickly. And to the right, the ladder was legitimate though. That third kobold hasn't been rediscovered yet. But to the right, they found a portcullis with a lever behind it. Dornar used Mage Hand, and he summoned a hand of magic and flipped that switch, and it opened up the portcullis. And then there was about a 15-foot drop into sand, and Dornar, suspecting that the sand was trapped, he used burning hands and turned all the sand into glass with fire, and they all hopped down. Also, the sand was blanketed with a mist that went about knee high. So they went along this pathway with a sand floor full of mist, and they were walking along, and they didn't seem to be suffering from any negative ailments. And suddenly, Dornar fell asleep, where he became stunned, and then he passed out. So Wolendithus and Thorin quickly tried to run to the end of this sand pit. Wolendithus soon fell asleep afterwards. Thorin collapsed briefly, but he was able to make a saving throw and crawl back up out of the pit. And he made his way to another kobold tunnel, and so he was safe. He then he held his breath and ran back for Dornar and Wolendithus and carried them back to the kobold tunnel, which was elevated slightly, so there wasn't any like gas or anything in there, or at least it was like so dispersed that it didn't have the same potent effects. And in these tunnels, they found a bedroll, a pickaxe, and a bedroll and a pickaxe. So they decided to leave the pickaxe behind, and they followed the pathway some more, and they ended up in this crypt sort of thing. There were dwarven-sized coffins, or sarcophagi, and an altar to Torog in the corner. So this is obviously some sort of worship place and burial site. But the floor of this crypt had completely collapsed. There are only a few portions of the floor left, where some of the coffins and the floor of the altar was there. And also to the right, they found they were able to determine that this is where the spiral staircase would have had another exit. And they cleared away some of the rubble, and they found that it would go down a little bit more, but that they couldn't clear it enough without like a 10-man archaeologist team to be able to go down that way. So so they hopped from from portion of the floor to the next, and sometimes using like plank bridges and coffin lids to make their way across. They made their way to one portion of the floor that had 3 sarcophagi on it, and then they went to the altar. And Thorin, with his knowledge of Turog, knew that the altar was incomplete, that it was missing a Book of Moradin and a pickaxe. I mean, not Moradin, dear God, no, 4th edition gods. They don't exist. They don't exist. No, Torog. And since Torog is god of the forge and dwarvenly things, this is not canon at all. I just made this up. But altars of Turog typically have like a spade, a pickaxe, and a Book of Turog on them. This one had a spade, but the other 2 components were missing. Thorin went back and got the pickaxe and put it on the altar, but they still didn't have a Book of Turag. So what they did was they started opening up the sarcophagi, looking to see if one of the paladins, or they didn't, one of the worshippers of Turag had been buried here, had been buried with the Book of Turag. Turns out one of them had a dwarven full plate mail, much like Thorin, so presumably a paladin, and 2 robe-clad skeleton dwarves. So Dornar wrenched the Book of Turag from the hands of the skeletal paladin dwarf, and the paladin the skeleton quickly reached, or sat up in his coffin, grabbed the book back, and warned him not to do it again, in a eerie skeletal voice. And Dornar, actually, no, he didn't grab it back. He insisted that the book was given back. Dornar declined, and they had a very claustrophobic battle on a small platform in the middle of a room, and a pit that they couldn't see the bottom of. And the paladins proved to be extremely tough, but yeah, the party wasn't doing so well until Dornar used his Thunder Wave spell and got 2 critical hits on with the 1 spell, and blasted them both off the platform into oblivion. Another one was knocked off. He was able to hold on to another bit of floor that was sticking out, but the party was merciless and threw stuff at him until he fell. So they completed the altar with the book, and 2 gloves appeared on the altar. They were each bearing the symbol of Turog. So obviously Thorin took those, and they gave him I think it was a bonus to AC also, or I'm just gonna say that. Might have been something different. But he took those, and they went back through the tunnels, the Kobold tunnels, and they ended up at some stairs leading down. They went down those, and they arrived in an ornate sort of corridor, but the end of it was completely blocked off by a cave-in. Fortunately, the left had more kobold tunnels that they went through, leading into an extremely cold grotto. Like, it was probably about -20 or -30 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was bearable a little bit, but if they stayed too long there in their current gear, they would probably have frozen to death. So in this grotto, they saw a few stone gargoyles with dragon heads sticking out, and many sort of ponds, underground bodies of water, separated by like rocks that they were able to walk on. So there were pathways of rock they were able to walk on, separated by a bunch of frozen bodies of water. But only the surface was frozen, and underneath they saw large black figures. Well, not large, but like 2 or 3 feet long black figures moving beneath the ice, and they assumed it was some sort of fish. and there was one giant wall of ice to the left, and behind it they could sort of see more like dwarven architecture. And to the right they could see, I'm not going to mention the Summoner thing, guys, inside joke, but yeah, to the right they saw a, actually just mention, I lied. Okay, but to the right they saw 9 stone gargoyles with their faces pointed at a pedestal, and on that pedestal they saw a sword sticking into it. And then also in the grotto they saw a large brass door, which was blocked off by another frozen body of water. But behind that body of water was like a proper dwarven bits of wall and stuff. So the party, or somebody, yeah, the party soon discovered that if they walked close enough to these gargoyles, they spat fire at them and melted the surface of the ice. So Dornar, being nimble, crawled his way across the ice to the left and made his way over to the wall of ice without being spotted by the gargoyle. Then he peeked out into the gargoyle's field of view. Gargoyle whipped around, shot a blast of fire at him, which he was able to avoid somehow, and it melted the ice wall completely. So then he went through there, and he found the very bottom of the spiral staircase with a human in full plate mail, his torso sticking out of the rubble. He's holding a kite shield in one hand with the symbol of Gorm. Dornar, not being very sentimental, he just took the shield from him, threw the guy's body into the water. It was quickly devoured by fish. He threw the kite shield to Wallenbithus, who used it. Also, I forgot to mention Wallenbithus' whitesmithing skills. Wallenbithus' backstory includes him being trained as a whitesmith, which basically means he can craft like bones and things. He made a small shield out of kobold bones and their like clothes and things. I don't know if this has happened yet, but somewhere in the story, the shield gets cut in half by a sword. I think that might be later. But now he's using a stolen kite shield, a heavy shield, off of the corpse of a dead paladin of Gorm, which is fitting. Then Dornar went back to the end of the stairs, and he went through, and he saw the scene of a gruesome battle. There were 2 other adventurers dead. One was a halfling, and one was a elven wizard. Both of them were dead. And there were the bodies of about 15 kobolds laying on the ground dead, and also all the bodies are frozen. But there was one body shivering in the corner, amid the, who also, Dornar noticed that the bodies of the kobolds and the 2 adventurers were stripped slightly naked, like their clothes were missing. And they saw that this large wad of clothes was shivering in the corner. As Dornar pulled them back, he saw a tiefling with blood around his mouth. He'd obviously been like eating kobolds. Hopefully not the flesh of his comrades. But he found a tiefling. A tiefling dressed in like leather armor and like he had daggers, so it was assumed he was a rogue. He couldn't quite talk, but Dornar brought him back to the rest of the party, introduced him, and brought him into the hallway out of the grotto where it was warm, and warmed him up a bit. Thorin laid his hands on him, and then got him a little bit healthier. And the tiefling introduced himself as Jackos Morthos. Real name, Jack Morthos. He's usually referred to just as Morthos. He is a fun-loving tiefling who loves long walks on the beach and devouring babies. No, I'm not one of those racists who despises tieflings. No, he's a neutral aligned rogue. I don't know. We're 4th edition when we made his character. which has terrible alignment systems. It'd probably be true neutral or chaotic. I'd say lawful neutral. Yeah, lawful neutral probably. True neutral to lawful neutral. So he's not evil or anything. I wouldn't let my characters be evil unless they're like lawful evil and they had some incentive not to kill the rest of the party for the loot. So anyway, Morthos told Dornar that and the rest of the party that he was with the original adventuring crew with Mr. Greenhorn, and he also bought Dornar's dagger off his frost dagger from him for a hefty sum of gold. Well, he didn't have a hefty sum, but pretty much all his gold, and a cut of whatever treasure his cut of whatever treasure they found, or a little bit of his cut, a cut of his cut, if you will. So before proceeding on, the party decided to arrest. Walendithis and Thorin rested in the grotto. Dornar and Morthos had sex. Rested in the wait a minute, what did I just say? Not that, but Dornar and Morthos slept in the grotto for some reason, because they all have adventurous kids. They all have like sleeping bags and things. So I guess they wanted to like sleep in the cold or something. So yeah, and Morthos and what am I doing? Oh my god, this is horrible. Thorin and Walendithis slept in the corridor, where it was warmer. And Walendithis was rudely awoken by getting a spear stabbed into his kneecap. He jolted awake, cried like a little girl, and the rest of the party came to his rescue, but it turned out it was only that one kobold that got away in the first encounter with them. And that kobold was quickly diminished into a pulp of scales and blood. So he died. The party was well rested enough that they didn't. Also, they were kind of riled up. They couldn't really go back to sleep. So they packed up their things and they continued on. Morthos had in his possession a crossbow. He was a crack shot with that. So he, not a hand crossbow, regular manly crossbow. He was really good at shooting with that. And he, with his excellent perception, he was able to see inside the mouths of the gargoyles and saw that they had crystals, which he described to Dornar, who told him that they were much like the crystals on top of the pylons. And Morthos was able to shoot a crossbow bolt directly inside the mouths of all the remaining gargoyles, and they spun around in circles when shot, spreading fire everywhere, and then they exploded. But everybody was able to stay out of harm's way, except that all the ice in the whole place had basically been melted and a bit boiled. I'm surprised how the party wasn't sure how the fish survived all that heat, seeing as how they're accustomed to cold environments. Anyway, nerds. Anyway, Morthos and Dornar being agile, they were able to jump over the bodies of water onto the other side. I think Walendithis was able to swim or something. It's not really important. Maybe he was maybe able to use a rope or something. Not quite sure, but they were able to make it across. I'm pretty sure that Walendithis or Thorin fell into the water and emerged with a giant fish hooked onto his ankle, and he just tore it off. I think it was Walendithis, yeah. I think I remember Walendithis with a giant. Keep in mind, Walendithis is a half-orc badass. And he had a giant fish sticking off his like cap, and he just ripped it off, and he like slammed it against the wall, killing it, and put it back in his pack for later. So they found the circle of 9 gargoyles around one pillar with a sword sticking out of it. And there's something in the Dwarven script about like having, if you pull a sword, it'll be like a challenge or something in True Treasure. I think that's what it was. I don't remember exactly what I wrote. But somebody pulled the sword out of it. This is another thing. I just make another note about how horrible 4th edition is. Notice how basically everybody does the same things. Like I say, somebody did it. Later on when we get to the Pathfinder part of the story, I absolutely know what everybody is doing independently, because everybody has such unique skills and things. But anyway, 4th edition sucks. somebody pulled the sword out of the wall, out of the pillar, and it animated itself. It like jumped out of the wielder's hands. The blade caught fire. I think it was Thorn who did. Yeah, it was Thorn. Thorn took it out of the pillar. The blade lit fire, and the sword lunged at Thorn, hitting him and leaving. When it hit him, a magic mark appeared on his chest, and all the gargoyles suddenly turned slightly. All the gargoyles were fixed on Thorn now that he was marked, and the sword was also. And then all the gargoyles shot fireballs at him. He was hit with a barrage of fire. So he retreated back to the rest of the party. The sword hit Dornar. He was marked then, and all of the gargoyles that were within that had line of sight on him shot at him. The other ones didn't really do anything. Then Thorn, they all like tried to swing at him and things, and it wasn't very effective. They were able to knock it out momentarily. They knocked it out of the sky, or out of the air. It fell on the ground, but then it resumed its onslaught of attacks. And Thorn, with a tremendous strength check, dropped his hammer and grabbed the sword out of the air. And he had to make an extreme effort because the blade kept wanting to point at his chest, but he made an effort to like point the blade away from him. And he ran at one of the gargoyles and hit it with the sword. It marked the gargoyle. All the rest of the gargoyles spit fireballs at it, and he went around doing this to the rest of the gargoyles and destroying them all. And the sword, he inserted the sword back into the pillar, and it disintegrated, and it left behind a ring. And Dornar the wizard inspected this ring, and he discovered it was called. It had thundering magic, and it would basically release a spell very similar to the Thunderwave spell that he had, except a lot more powerful. But it would take a little bit to recharge, about 5 minutes or so. So he took that with him. And they went to the giant brass door. And this is the climax of the Guile's Tomb dungeon. I'm sorry this has been like a complete dungeon crawl. I do learn the errors of my ways, and I don't do this ever again so far. Although this dungeon crawl was incredibly enjoyable for me and the party, but role-playing is not meant to be like that. Don't design dungeons like that unless it's gonna be like a one-off thing. For like campaigns and stuff, it's a lot more fun just to have like towns and things. And quests don't involve too much combat, and when they do, don't have like 10 combat encounters in a row. I recommend only having like 1 or 2 in a row. Anyway, just a DM tip number 1, right there. DM tip number 2 is never pay for your own pizza. Just have the rest of the guys pay for it. And come on, I spent like 20 hours on designing this campaign. I deserve some free pizza, you know what I mean? Anyway, so I actually pay for like half the damn pizza. God damn it, I hate my fucking party members. Anyway, actually I don't, that's a lie. I don't know. You can't trust me. I lie so much. I change my mind at every turn. So they went to the giant brass door. And behind it was a giant golden room. It was amazing. They were on one platform that was made of gold, and behind them was the giant brass door. And then also behind them were 3 other brass doors along the wall to the right. Like if they followed the wall to the right, they'd find 2 other brass doors. But they were on one platform, and there was a bridge leading to another platform on the other side. And in the gap between the 2 platforms was a giant lake of lava that lit the whole place brightly. And there were 2 pillars emerging from the lava, each with a golden dragon statue on it. At the other platform, they all went to it, across the bridge, keeping a watchful eye on the dragon statues. And at the end was a solid gold sarcophagus and 2 golden chests. Dornar reached the sarcophagus first, and he was quickly shocked by an aura of light around the sarcophagus. Then Thorn, remembering that Guile was a tremendous racist, peeked his step through the sarcophagus, smashed the padlock on it with his hammer, opened it up, and he saw a skeleton of a dwarf in solid gold armor, holding, well, not solid gold, obviously, that'd be horrible armor. What is this, Minecraft? No. He had gold-plated armor, at least, which later was discovered as magical, but nobody really bothered with the armor. They were so excited they found Guile's orb, which, yeah, so the dwarven skeleton in gold-plated armor, a gold-plated battle axe in one hand, and his other hand he was holding a golden orb. So they found the tomb of Guile the Goldsmith, and they found his orb, which was the magic item that Eccentric had sent them down here to retrieve. Did I even mention that this whole time? No, I don't think I did. Well, that was a giant fail. I'm sorry, guys. Eccentrica didn't want them to go. Yeah, Eccentrica wanted them to retrieve Guile's orb from the place, from the Guile's tomb. That's the magical artifact I wanted. In case you get confused with like the cousin's amulet or whatever. No, what they wanted was the Guile's orb. That's the main goal here, and they finally gotten it. And as Thorn picked it up, they heard it growling from behind, and you could probably guess what that is. And as they turned around, one of the dragon statues was looking right at them, with its wings outstretched, ready to swoop. And also Morthos, with his keen perception, noticed that the lava lake was slowly rising. So there was a giant battle in which Thorin was incapacitated several times and had to be inspired by Wallenthus the Warlord's inspiring word to keep from dying. And they hadn't even bloodied the creature, or rubbled, I guess, because it was a construct, a statue. It wasn't like a real golden dragon. It was just a statue. Or was it? Yeah, it was. And also, since Thorn had the orb and then he charged at the dragon, he was pretty far away from the rest of the party who were using range attacks. So the orb rolled out of his hand as he hit the ground and went unconscious the first time. Because he ran at it, and then the dragon bit him, and then tripped him with its tail, and like spit fire at him and bit him and just clawed at him, and yeah, and Thorn was incapacitated several times. The orb rolled out of his hand on the ground. Meanwhile Morthos was sniping the dragon from afar with his dead shot skills as a crossbowman. Wallenthus went up to aid Thorn in the melee. Dornar at first was using like range spells, and then he decided, oh wait, we need that orb. That's probably really powerful. So they went up and grabbed, and so Dornar ran past the dragon, was almost beheaded, picked up the orb from the ground, and channeled his magic energy through it, and golden flames erupted from the end of it, and the dragon was injured, and the dragon suddenly stopped attacking, sat on its hind legs, looked up, or I guess not looked up, he was a lot bigger than Dornar, looked down at Dornar, and said, like, my master. But in expending his magic energy and expelling magic energy through the orb, Dornar realized that his hand had turned solid gold around the orb, and it was immobile. Also, with his Arcana check, he noticed that the orb was also extremely useful for channeling just regular arcane power, like 3 times as good as his previous orb. No, his previous orb wasn't even magical; it was just like a glass orb. So yeah, it was like infinitely better than his last orb. But he realized that whenever he would channel his power through the orb, that his hand that would come at the cost of his parts of his body. So actually, no, I think he used the orb a few more times. I don't remember exactly where, but oh yes, I do. Oh, we'll get to that. All right, so then after the dragon had succumbed to his will, all three brass doors burst open, and out came a bunch of soldiers. This is where the story gets out come a bunch of soldiers, and one man with a they were all had dark iron armor on, with a symbol of a gate with 3 circles on it, and the leader of which was a man with a plumed full helmet, and he had and they all had several of the soldiers down them had crossbows aimed at the party, and many of them had swords drawn, and he was actually quite polite to the party. He told them that the orb was rightfully theirs, and that if they gave it up, that no harm would come to them, and they would be left free. But the party was extremely greedy, and Dornar commanded the dragon to attack the nice soldiers, who told them they were called the Order of Belial, and they wanted the orb for purposes they would not describe to the party. Also, Excentrica told them earlier that the orbs were used to open up something called the Gate of Solitude, which there were many rumors. I mean, obviously the party had heard about the gate before, but they didn't really know that it was opened. And also they thought that the orbs were a myth. Excentrica herself thought the orbs were a myth too, until they discovered that one was residing underneath her house. So apparently the orbs are used to open up. There are other orbs too. There are 2 other mythical orbs. The orb of rust, and the orb of blood. So, and behind the Gate of Solitude is rumored that there are mythical treasures. Some say there's an apocalypse bringing superpower, and some say there's both. Some say there's a land full of naked women and alcohol. It just depends on who you ask. Spoiler alert, it's none of those. Well, at least not the last one. Or is it? That's a good idea. Yeah, I should use that. So they left aboard the dragon, and then Dornar used the orb to control the other dragon statue, consuming a little bit more of his arm, which turned gold as well. The other dragon, the rest of the party left on, and they had two dragons versus many soldiers. But the lava at this point had reached about the floor of the place, so the soldiers were jumping around, trying not to stand in the lava. But the commander, he left all of his soldiers to fight, and he left through one of the brass doors, and and he ordered all the soldiers to not leave unless they had the orb, or else they would meet a fate worse than death. So the soldiers stayed in the room full of lava, burning to death as they shot crossbow bolts up at the dragons, which had flown up near the ceiling. And some of the soldiers had stopped shooting. Although also the Order of Belial crossbowmen, some of them shot glowing bolts that glowed red, that soon exploded after they hit the dragons, and they landed around the dragons, which did terrible damage. But soon the lava was about ankle high, and the Order of Belial had stopped shooting at them. They were crying out in pain, basically cooking in their own armor. So Morthos ordered his dragon to pick up save two of the soldiers. And Dornar, being an evil bastard, even though he said this is the first act of evil that Dornar, the quote good aligned character, lawful good aligned character, this is the first act of evil that quote lawful good character Dornar does. He does many more evil acts for no reason, but Dornar decided to order his dragon to swoop down, knocking all of the soldiers into the lava, not saving any of them. Luckily, Morthos had saved two. One of the soldiers that Morthos had rescued was extremely scared, however, and he thought that the party was going to do nefarious things with him. So what he did was he took out one of his explosive bolts, ignited it, stuck it into the dragon's foot, killed himself, and he fell into he fell into the lava. The other survivor barely held on to the dragon's claw, and yeah. So the party spent the night up at the ceiling of Guile's tomb. They just slept on top of the dragons. In the morning, the lava had completely receded down to the like there was no lava, and the bottom of the lake of lava was completely empty. For some reason, the party didn't take Guile's treasure with them at all. Yeah, that was weird. That they just forgot about the treasure. I kind of did too, but I mean, I'm not gonna like say, hey guys, you forgot about that treasure. I mean, I let the party do it how they want. So Wallenbithus was, and also Morthos ordered his the guy he rescued to like strip down to his undergarments, and he basically made him into an indentured servant. Thorin the paladin, lawful good paladin, was obviously strongly against this. But then Wallenbithus grabbed the survivor, ordered the dragon to like stomp on him with his talons so he couldn't move, and then Wallenbithus put his axe blade to the guy's neck, and he took the survivor's own short sword, put it through his neck, and then like interrogated him about the order. He didn't really have any useful information except that the order was looking for the orbs, obviously. And this is where the party first discovered that there were multiple orbs. There's some. No, they already heard about that. Never mind. Disregard that. But Thorin, yeah. So Morthos attacked Wallenbithus. He didn't want any harm to come to his indentured servant. Then Thorin yelled at both of them, said the guy should go free. And yeah, since Thorin is the guy with the big armor and the giant warhammer, everybody kind of listened to him. So the dragons told Dornar that he could summon them using Guile's orb, and they would come wherever Dornar was to aid him. And also, yeah, that. And also they led the party out through a secret entrance at the bottom of the lake of lava, which is now empty. They opened up a door for them, and the party went out through several caverns, taking the indentured servant, well, former indentured servant and former Belial officer or soldier, whose name was Leroy. So Leroy went with them, and the door closed behind them to Guile's tomb. And so they went along the caverns, and they exited. And they at the end they found what appeared like some wooden structure. So Thorin knocked it down with his warhammer, and it turned out to be the back of a cupboard. And looked around, they were in what appeared to be a basement. And then an old woman came down the stairs and saw them, and began screaming and attacking Thorin with a broom. Thorin just sort of stood there, trying to calm her down, like, ma'am, ma'am. Then Wallenbithus used his intimidation and intimidated her, and then, like, diplomacy to make up for it. It's like, woman, you best stop that. We're going to do what we're going to do, and they're going to sit in the corner. He has a really strange voice, Wallenbithus. So, and then the party was able to use diplomacy to calm her down, and so much so that she actually offered them tea. They were convinced that they were like saving the world from some grave danger. Also, they warned the party. The party warned her that in some time in the future there may be some giant dragons coming out of her basement. She nearly fainted, and the party just declined her tea and went back to Eccentricus' house. And also, they were able to use their navigational skills to determine they were about a mile out of Candlekeep, and they're able to navigate their way back to Eccentricus' house. And I think that is going to conclude session 1. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. I promise it gets a lot better. I swear it does. Or no, it doesn't. I lied. Well, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But once we switch to Pathfinder, it's really enjoyable. It's a lot more role playing. I should spend less time describing the combat scenes and stuff, except when they're really good. I mean, there's not really any more dungeon crawls. It's gonna be a lot more exciting from now on. Also, yeah. So if you have any like tips or anything, just tell me. I'll get better. I know I like really suck at storytelling. I omitted a bunch of stuff that I'd add in later, like the whole point of the damn quest. I might have some other party members join me for the retelling of the story, just in case so I don't forget anything. I think that I'm not gonna take notes because I'm a lazy bastard. But yeah, if you have any suggestions or anything, just tell me about how I should tell the stories. But yeah, goodbye, ladies. Been Mr. Will Sauce, and you've been the ladies. Actually, I should probably say goodbye, lady, because it looks like the YouTube stats. I have about like 100 viewers or something, and I think it's like 0.7% of my viewers are female. So yeah, that 0.7 of a woman out there. This is the hello ladies is for you. All your like lady friends who are probably watching together, because that's what ladies do, right? They watch me. No, I just said they don't. They don't.